I was 30 seconds into the most important pitch of my life when Ryan's son walked in and destroyed everything. The 6 investors had been nodding along to my presentation, my 3 years of molecular research displayed on the screen behind me. Then Owen Mitchell strolled through that boardroom door wearing a cream suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Sorry to interrupt, Lucas," he said, not sounding sorry at all, "but there's been a change of plan." The faces around the conference table shifted from interested to uncomfortable. "You know that look, the one that says your career just ended and everyone's too polite to tell you. I'm Lucas Stone, by the way, 48 years old. I've been breaking my back in labs for 20-plus years, working my way up from community college to this moment. No fancy degrees, no family money, just stubborn determination and a knack for seeing patterns other people miss." Owen glided to the front like he owned the place, which technically he did. His father Ryan owned Mitchell Biotech Solutions, and nepotism runs deep in family businesses. "My father asked me to share some exciting news," Owen announced, pulling up his own presentation. Mine disappeared from the screen with a casual click. "We've developed an alternative approach that shows significantly better market potential." That's when he said the words that changed everything. "We don't need your ideas anymore." He kept his voice low so only I could hear, then louder to the room. Lucas's work laid important groundwork, but we're taking a more innovative direction. I stood there watching him present concepts that looked suspiciously familiar. Slides that contained ideas I'd scribbled in my personal notebooks during late nights in the lab, ideas I'd never formally shared with anyone. When Owen finished, the investors applauded. Mason Rodriguez, our lead investor, actually stood up. "This is exactly what we hope to see, much more commercially viable than what we reviewed before." I packed my laptop while they discussed $80 million in funding rounds and expansion plans. Nobody noticed when I slipped my keycard onto the table and headed for the door. Ryan Mitchell caught my eye as I left. The man who'd hired me 4 years ago, who'd said I was the future of his company, now looked right through me like I was already gone. "Enjoy the funding," I said quietly. The shaking didn't start until I reached my parking spot. 3 years of work, my breakthrough innovation, my future, gone. But what hurt most was realizing Owen had studied my research closely enough to steal it wholesale. I drove home calculating what I needed to do before Ryan figured out what I'd been planning. I had maybe 48 hours. See, I grew up watching my mother clean other people's houses, studied at whatever kitchen table we could afford in whatever apartment we lived in that month, clawed through college on scholarships and restaurant tips while other students slept. Ryan hired me despite my background, not because of it. "Fresh perspectives create breakthroughs," he'd said during my interview. For 3 years, I worked 16-hour days developing a method to stabilize volatile compounds for targeted drug delivery. This wasn't just a paycheck, it was my shot at proving I belonged in their world. Then Owen showed up 8 months ago, fresh from some European business school, installed in a corner office with the made-up title Strategic Innovation Director. Ryan introduced him with proud father eyes, telling us how lucky we were for his fresh perspective. I tried to be welcoming, shared my research when Owen asked questions, explained my methodology when he seemed interested, thought he genuinely wanted to learn. "You're brilliant, Lucas," he told me once, leaning against my workstation. "But you don't understand how this industry really works." Turns out those words were both warning and threat. The investor meeting had been scheduled for months, my chance to present directly to the money people. Ryan had personally reviewed my slides, nodded at my results, told me to knock their socks off. Then 3 days before the presentation, Owen started asking detailed questions, wanted to see my latest lab notebooks, needed to understand the commercial applications more clearly. Now I sat in my apartment staring at my cat Newton, who sensed something was wrong. By tomorrow, Ryan would realize what I'd done. Then the real chaos would begin. My phone buzzed. Text from Charlotte, my closest friend in the lab. "What happened? Everyone's talking, but nobody knows anything." Before I could respond, another message popped up, this one from Ryan himself. "We need to talk, now." I turned off the phone and opened my laptop instead. Time to get to work. The next morning felt calm before the storm. I showered, dressed in my best professional outfit, and prepared for the confrontation I knew was coming. My laptop contained everything I needed, proof that would either save my career or end it completely. The security guard looked confused when I arrived at the research park. "Thought you quit yesterday." "Not officially," I said, forcing a smile. The lab buzzed with unusual energy. Conversation stopped when I walked by. Colleagues avoided eye contact. I went straight to my workstation and started packing my personal items, ignoring the whispers. Charlotte appeared at my side. "Ryan's been looking for you since yesterday afternoon. He's losing it." "What did you do?" I carefully placed my coffee mug in my bag. "Nothing he didn't have coming." "Lucas, this isn't like you. Tell me what's happening." Before I could answer, Ryan's voice boomed across the lab. "Stone, my office. Now." Every eye followed me as I walked to his office. Ryan stood in his doorway, face red with anger, his expensive suit making him look desperate instead of powerful. "Close the door," he snapped. I did, then stood waiting. Small act of defiance, but it mattered. "Where is it?" Ryan demanded. I tilted my head. "Where's what exactly?" "Don't play dumb with me, you know what's missing." "The investors are arriving in an hour to finalize everything. And suddenly we can't access the core stabilization process. Your process." I let his words hang in the air, watching his confidence crack. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said finally. "According to yesterday's meeting, you're going with Owen's approach. My ideas aren't needed anymore, remember?" Ryan's face darkened. "His approach relies on your stabilization process, which is suddenly incomplete in our systems. What did you remove?" I smiled. The kind of smile that comes from holding all the cards while your opponent realizes they've been bluffing with nothing. "I didn't remove anything from company systems, Ryan. That would be unethical." "Then explain why we can't replicate your results this morning. The investors expect a live demonstration in 60 minutes. The door burst open and Owen swept in, his yesterday confidence replaced with panic. "Dad, the lab team can't." He stopped when he saw me. "What's he doing here?" "Collecting my things," I said calmly, "since you made it clear my ideas aren't needed." Owen looked between me and his father. "You did something. We can't get the stabilization process to work." "That's unfortunate. Have you tried following your own innovative approach? The one you presented yesterday?" The color drained from his face. "I was building on your work." "Really? That wasn't mentioned in your presentation. You specifically said you developed an alternative approach." Ryan stepped forward. "Enough games. Fix this and we'll discuss compensation, promotion, whatever you want." "I can't help you, Ryan. As I said, I didn't remove anything from company systems. Everything I developed while employed here remains intact." "Then why isn't it working?" Owen snapped. I checked my watch. "Maybe because science requires understanding, not just fancy slides." I moved toward the door. "I have my own meeting to attend." Ryan blocked my path. "You're not going anywhere until you fix this." I looked up at him steadily. "Are you physically preventing me from leaving? Because that creates a whole different set of problems for you." The threat hung between us. Ryan was ruthless, calculating, privileged. But he wasn't stupid. After a moment, he stepped aside. "This isn't over," he said through clenched teeth. "Actually, it is," I replied. "I quit yesterday, when your son announced my ideas weren't needed anymore." I walked through the lab, feeling their stares. Colleagues who'd been whispering now watched in silence. Most would never dare stand up to Ryan Mitchell. As I reached the exit, Owen's voice rang out. "He sabotaged us. He must have." I didn't turn around. The damage was spreading. Doubt, confusion, fear. The investors would arrive to chaos instead of confidence. Owen's perfect presentation would crumble when they asked for live demonstrations. Outside, I took my first real breath since entering the building. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers and a text from Charlotte. What just happened? I got in my car but didn't start it. Instead, I watched the main entrance. 5 minutes later, Mason Rodriguez arrived with 2 other investors. Their expensive cars and confident strides spoke of people used to being catered to. They had no idea they were walking into disaster. 10 minutes passed before my phone rang. Unknown number. Lucas speaking. "This is Mason Rodriguez. We need to talk. I'm listening." "Not over the phone." "Where are you?" I looked at the gleaming building. "Close by. Coffee shop across the street." 5 minutes. He hung up. I smiled at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Right on schedule. Mason was already seated in a corner booth when I entered, as far from other customers as possible. His usually perfect appearance showed strain, tie askew, slight sweat on his forehead. I ordered coffee before joining him, taking my time, establishing control through unhurried movements. "What happened in there?" he demanded when I sat down. I sipped my coffee. "You'll have to be more specific." Don't mess around, Lucas. Yesterday, Owen presents a revolutionary stabilization process. Today, nobody can make it work. And Ryan looks like he's having a breakdown. Sounds stressful for them. Mason leaned forward. 6 investors are ready to commit $80 million, but not if this is smoke and mirrors. I nodded. Interesting dilemma. What do you want? He was being direct now, recognizing a negotiation. Want to fix this, to make the process work like it did in all our preliminary reviews. I'm not employed there anymore. That can change. He pulled out his phone. Your salary was $110,000? We can triple that. Stock options too. I shook my head. You're barking up the wrong tree, Mason. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I'm not interested in going back to work for Ryan. Then what do you want? I took another sip, making him wait. You're investing in a specific innovation, right? Yes. A molecular stabilization process for targeted drug delivery. Right. And you've verified this process works? That it's reproducible? He shifted uncomfortably. The preliminary data was solid, but this morning... Suddenly nobody can make it work, I finished. Doesn't that concern you? It would concern me more if I didn't think you were behind it. I smiled. That's quite an accusation. Am I wrong? Let me ask you something, Mason. In yesterday's presentation, who did Owen say developed this process? He frowned, thinking back. He presented it as company innovation. His team's work. I nodded slowly. Interesting. Understanding dawned on his face. You're saying... I'm saying you should be careful where you put $80 million. I stood up, leaving my coffee half finished, especially when the presenter can't actually deliver what he's selling. Wait, Mason reached out but stopped short of grabbing me. We need to continue this conversation. I agree, but not here. I handed him a business card with just a phone number. Call at 3 p.m. if you want to see what actually works. I left him staring at the card. Back at my apartment, my phone lit up with messages. The lab was in complete chaos. Technicians couldn't replicate results that had been consistent for months. Owen was blaming equipment failure. Ryan was threatening to fire everyone if they didn't fix it. Charlotte texted, Ryan just fired Aaron for suggesting the process might be flawed. What's happening? I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and prepared for my 3 p.m. meeting. Everything had to be perfect. At exactly 3 p.m., my phone rang. Hello, Mason, I answered. Ready to see something that actually works? I'm listening, he replied. But I'm not alone. Who's with you? The entire investment group. After this morning's mess, we need certainty. I smiled. Text me the address. I'll bring everything you need to see. 2 hours later, I stood before 6 of the industry's most powerful investors in a private conference room downtown. No Ryan, no Owen, just me and the work I'd spent years perfecting. Before I begin, I said, setting up my equipment, I want to be clear about something. What you're about to see belongs to me, not to Mitchell Biotech. Mason leaned forward. That contradicts what we heard yesterday. I imagine a lot of things you heard yesterday won't hold up to scrutiny. I launched into my presentation explaining the real methodology behind the stabilization process. I demonstrated results with samples I'd prepared, letting them verify the science themselves. When I finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Mason spoke. This is remarkable work, Lucas, but it raises serious questions about what happened at Mitchell's company. I can answer those questions, I said. But first, are you interested in funding the actual innovation, not just a presentation about it? Another investor, Sophia Turner, spoke up. Are you saying you've established your own company? I have, as of 6 weeks ago. Mason's eyebrows shot up. 6 weeks? Before yesterday's presentation? I nodded. I saw which way the wind was blowing. The process and intellectual property belongs to me personally, developed through independent research using my own resources outside company hours. Ryan will fight that claim, Sophia said. Let him try. I slid a folder across the table. This contains documentation of every step I took to protect my work, verified by independent legal counsel. Mason opened the folder, scanning its contents. You've been planning this for months. I've been protecting myself for months, I corrected. There's a difference. And what exactly happened this morning? Another investor asked. Why couldn't their lab replicate the results? I met her gaze steadily, because they never fully understood the process to begin with. They had my results, but not my methodology. Owen saw the destination, but not the path. That's devastating for them, Mason said slowly. Yes, it is. The investors exchanged glances, having a silent conversation. I remained standing, calm despite the butterflies. We need to discuss this privately, Mason finally said. I nodded, gathering my materials. Of course. No, Sophia interrupted, raising her hand. Stay, please. I have more questions. I paused between leaving and staying. Your documentation shows you developed this independently, she continued, tapping the folder. But you were employed by Mitchell during this time. Most contracts have IP clauses. Mine did too, I acknowledged, which is why I was careful to develop the critical components on my own time with my own equipment. The lab results they have show a version that works, but not the refined process I've perfected since realizing what was happening. When was that exactly? Another investor asked. When Owen arrived, I said simply. He asked too many specific questions, spent too much time examining my notes rather than understanding the science. After I caught him going through my desk after hours, I created a separate research path. Mason's eyes widened. You have proof of that? I nodded. Security footage. I requested it claiming I'd misplaced some notes. The cameras caught him at my workstation at 10:30 p.m. on 4 separate occasions when I wasn't present. The room went quiet. I could see calculations happening behind their eyes, not just financial ones, but reputational. Nobody wanted to back a company built on stolen research. What exactly are you proposing? Mason asked. My company, Stone Therapeutics, is seeking investment to bring this stabilization process to market. We're small but focused. No bloated management, no nepotism. Just scientists who understand what we're building. And your team consists of? Sophia asked. Currently 4 people, including myself. All experts who left Mitchell in the past year due to... I paused, choosing words carefully. Leadership concerns. Sophia nodded slowly. You've been planning your exit for some time. I've been protecting my work, I corrected again. The exit became necessary when it became clear my contributions wouldn't be respected. One of the quieter investors leaned forward. What makes your process different from what we saw yesterday? In layman's terms. I appreciated the question. This was my element, the science itself, not the politics around it. Imagine trying to deliver medicine to a specific part of the body, I began. Traditional methods are like throwing darts blindfolded. Some might hit the target, but most scatter elsewhere, causing side effects. My process creates a guided delivery system. The medication remains stable until it reaches exactly where it's needed, then activates precisely. Applications? Mason asked. Cancer treatment initially, delivering chemotherapy directly to tumors without damaging surrounding tissue. Eventually, the platform could work for neurological conditions, autoimmune disorders, anywhere we need targeted treatment. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't just about corporate drama anymore. It was about potential that transcended office politics. We need to verify your claims independently, Mason said, his voice carrying new respect. I welcome that, I replied. In the meantime, Sophia added, I suggest we pause discussions with Mitchell's company. The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises of follow-up. As I packed my presentation materials, Mason approached privately. Ryan called me 6 times today, he said quietly. I continued organizing my papers. That's unfortunate. He claims you stole research. That's rich, coming from him. Mason studied me. You knew this would happen. All of it. I met his gaze. I knew what kind of people I was dealing with. The rest was just paying attention. As I left the building, my phone vibrated with a text from Charlotte. Total meltdown. Ryan's firing everyone. Owen locked himself in his office. What did you do? I didn't respond. Some things were better explained in person. Another message appeared as I reached my car. This one from Ryan. This isn't over. You've made a serious mistake. I stared at the words, feeling not fear but calm. The threat was expected, predictable, like everything else about Ryan when you understood what motivated him. That evening, I met Charlotte at a quiet restaurant across town, away from anyone who might recognize us. She arrived looking exhausted, her lab coat exchanged for a sweater that couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders. I've never seen anything like today, Charlotte said immediately, not even waiting to sit down. Ryan completely lost it, threw a chair through his office window. Is everyone okay? Physically, yes. Professionally, half the senior staff resigned on the spot. The rest are updating their resumes. She leaned in. The investors pulled out completely. All of them. I nodded, unsurprised. You did something, she continued, studying my face. You know exactly what happened. I protected myself and my work. How? I smiled slightly. By understanding people's motivations. Ryan wants status and control. Owen wants to prove himself to Daddy without doing the work. The investors want returns without risk. And you? What do you want? Recognition for what I built. And never to feel as powerless as I did in that boardroom. Charlotte sat back. You're starting your own company, aren't you? Already started. 6 weeks ago. Her eyes widened. Before the presentation, I saw where things were heading. Is there... She hesitated. Room for another scientist? I thought you'd never ask. The next morning, my lawyer called with news. Ryan had filed an emergency injunction trying to block me from using his research. The judge had denied it based on the documentation I'd provided weeks earlier. He's floundering, my lawyer explained, making desperate moves without proper preparation. Will there be more legal challenges? Almost certainly, but we're prepared. Your foresight in documenting everything independently was crucial. By afternoon, industry blogs were buzzing. Mitchell Biotech's stock had dropped 15%. Board members were calling emergency meetings. Through carefully cultivated contacts, I learned that Owen had been quietly removed from his position. I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected. Instead, there was a strange emptiness, the vacuum that follows when something that consumed you suddenly evaporates. That evening, as I worked late in my small but growing lab space, the security system alerted me to a visitor. The camera showed Owen standing outside, looking nothing like the confident young man who had interrupted my presentation. His hair was disheveled, his clothing wrinkled, his posture defeated. Against my better judgment, I buzzed him in. He entered cautiously, glancing around the modest space with surprise. This is it? This is what destroyed us? You destroyed yourselves, I replied. I just refused to go down with you. He sank into the nearest chair without invitation. My father won't speak to me. The board removed me this morning. His voice held no tears, just disbelief. Everything's gone. What did you expect when you stole someone else's research without understanding it? I didn't steal it, he insisted automatically, then stopped himself. I adapted it. Improved the presentation. Science isn't about presentations, Owen. It's about truth. About putting in hours to understand complex systems. There are no shortcuts. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw past the privileged exterior to the insecurity beneath. How did you do it? How did you know what would happen? I paid attention to details, to patterns, to people. While you were studying my notes, I was studying you. He winced. The investors are talking to you now, aren't they? I nodded. They won't invest in my father's company even with me gone. The damage is done. Trust once broken is nearly impossible to restore. He stood suddenly. I didn't come here for sympathy. I came to understand what happened. Now you do. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. You planned all of this from the beginning. No, I corrected. I simply created options for myself while you and your father eliminated yours. After he left, I sat alone in the lab, surrounded by equipment I'd purchased with my own savings. The space was small compared to Ryan's state-of-the-art facility, but it was mine. Every beaker, every centrifuge, every microscope represented a choice to bet on myself when no one else would. 48 hours after Owen interrupted my presentation, everything had changed. Mitchell Biotech was in free fall. The investors were negotiating with me instead, and the research that might help countless patients would continue under my direction. The revenge wasn't in destroying Ryan or humiliating Owen, it was in proving they had never been necessary to begin with. My phone rang. Mason again. The boards finalized their decision, he said without preamble. We're prepared to offer initial funding of $60 million with performance-based additions that could take it to 100. I closed my eyes briefly, absorbing the magnitude. There's something else, he continued. Ryan is being removed as CEO. The board's lost confidence. I see. They asked about you as a possible replacement. I laughed, genuinely surprised. I'm flattered, but no, I'm building something of my own now. I thought you might say that. Worth asking, though. When we hung up, I walked through the quiet lab, running my fingers over equipment that represented not just scientific tools, but freedom. The freedom to work on my own terms, to be recognized for my contributions, to never again stand silently while someone else took credit for my life's work. The next morning, a courier delivered a package to my apartment. Inside was my original lab notebook, the one that had disappeared from my desk months earlier. A small note accompanied it, written in Ryan's distinctive handwriting. "You've won. Was it worth it?" I closed the notebook, feeling the weight of years of work in my hands. Was it worth it? The question lingered as I prepared for the day, for investor meetings, for the beginning of something new. The answer came that afternoon when Charlotte called to officially accept my job offer, followed by 2 other former Mitchell employees ready to join Stone Therapeutics. "Ready to change the world?" I asked when we gathered in our expanded lab space. Their answering smiles told me everything I needed to know. Yes, it was worth it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about tearing others down. It's about building yourself up to heights they never imagined you could reach. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about your own experiences standing up for your work. The satisfaction of proving your worth never gets old.